That was beautiful. Absolutely, absolutely wonderful. Sometimes the music is the message. What an honor it is to join together in community this week. It has been an absolutely milestone week, and for many reasons. It was great to run into a few people from the Manhattan community at Unity Village on Thursday. It was a bittersweet visit, though, because that was the day of the celebration of life service for Jennifer Holder. And she did serve this community while she was a student and beyond. And it's amazing to see and hear of the love that she shared. Facebook was filled with messages of love that I truly could feel and get an even bigger picture of who she was and the impact that she made on the planet. So we just honor her and celebrate her for the love that she was as a minister, as a wife to Ogun, as a mother to Joy, as a friend and family member. And we honor her soul's ongoing by taking a moment in this silence. So let us spend one minute in this silence honoring Jennifer Holder and all that she was and all that she continues to be. And we do say thank you, God, for guiding Jennifer home and for being with her friends and family at this time. We offer our comfort and peace. And another milestone this week was the United States Supreme Court's ruling that same-sex couples now have the right to marry. Woohoo! The lighthouse was lit up with rainbow colors, a sign of diversity, a symbol of diversity that unites us as people across the planet, truly. People in Unity churches, people on Facebook and all over the world are celebrating this historic event. And what's wonderful about it is that it's bringing up some dialogue. There's always been talk, but now there's even more. And it's just a good thing. So thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for all those who have worked towards diversity in our country. I celebrate with those around the country that are now able to step forward in legal marriage, and I believe that the fabric of society is actually strengthened by this now that the highest court in the land has affirmed equality in marriage. Love wins. Amen. You know, sometimes it's obvious what changes need to unfold in our lives, and we can see what needs to happen in the planet. Sometimes change just lands in our lap, though. And sometimes change is easier to take than at other times. Change isn't always easy. It can be uncomfortable, and oftentimes it includes loss. Sometimes we see the road before us, and we know what to expect. And the road just is pre-paved for us, and we know what direction we're going. And sometimes we even have a panoramic view of our lives. And those times feel so great, even fun, joyful. And then there are those times where it may feel like we're driving in the fog, driving in the midst. It's a winding road. We don't know what's around the corner. We're not sure. Can't really see what's ahead of us. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. Been there? Perhaps a loss of a dear one or a diagnosis, challenges at work or in a relationship, those big life changes. And even sometimes life just seems to be that way. Maybe it's not a big change. It could be something small, but we just don't know what the next steps are. But can we feel a sense of greater comfort even in the discomfort? That's the challenge. I think that's what we're being asked to do. So with not knowing or even liking what is unfolding, can we know that God is here and that this too shall pass? Because all things do. Eventually the fog lifts and the way becomes clear, or at least a little bit more clear. And it is with a deep sense of peace or maybe sheer joy when that happens, when we finally get the call about the job, or we just have a sense that we know we're on the right track. Or those little coincidences in life pop up to let us know, yes, you're doing what is yours to do. However difficult the change may have been, we can know that God is taking to us to a new place in our lives. Sometimes life may appear dark and scary, and maybe during those times we're working something out. We're exploring a different part of who we are, or maybe we're going back and seeing something in a new way, or gaining a new strength. I know that when my mother passed away, it felt like I dug deeper than ever before to get through that. And without me going through that experience, my experience of her transition, I wouldn't be who I am here today. So I know that God took me, I took me, together we went to a place that was new for Diana. So I thought I was prepared when she passed. After all, I had heard the diagnosis 3 years earlier. I even felt a sense of knowing in the pit of my stomach that she wouldn't be around forever. I was 37 at this time, but there was just nothing that could have prepared me for what I went through. We are never emotionally prepared when that time comes, but we can always be spiritually prepared. We can always be prayed up to have that sense, even in the mystery, even in not knowing. So my topic for today is living in the mystery. Even in the midst of not knowing what is before us, we can have a sense of faith to know that we can continue putting one foot in front of the other. They may be small footsteps that we take, but we can keep on keeping on. So at this time, my heart was empty, and I kept turning to everything around me to fill that dark hole. Whether it was overeating or overspending or reading, distracting myself from the pain. I can even remember ordering or wanting to order this beautiful watch. And it had like an abalone shell face. And the radiance of it just reminded me of spirit. But before I even ordered it, I realized this isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't going to fill that hole inside of me. And then I was even madder because I realized that. I realize that this is not what I'm seeking. This may be a glimpse of what I'm seeking. It may remind me of what I'm seeking, of God's light. But that is the only thing that could truly fill that hole within me. It can feel scary when changes unfold or when life is just so unsure. It can feel like the rug is being pulled out from underneath us. I've been watching Ogun's posts and reading them. He's doing a lot of writing, and it feels like he's writing my story of where I was 10 years ago. And like a fish, like a goldfish that swims in dirty water, you may have let your goldfish tank go an extra week, and the fish gets used to it, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, and that's where I was. I was so comfortable with the sadness and the loss, and that I couldn't see clearly. And that is what Spirit can bring us, is that clearer view. That's why being prayed up clears our minds and helps us be able to take the next step. And watching his writing and reading it is, if I was more clear-minded 10 years ago when I went through the loss, it's like he's writing those same words. So I'm so grateful that he's giving voice to what he's going through and what his daughter is going through as well. During these times, it may even feel like we have lost touch with the current of life itself. And we have heard the phrase, it's always darkest before dawn. Yet the light dawns upon us. It's like we crack open and we let in that light of God. I was shattered. Who I was and who I thought I was and what I was going to be doing with my life, it just felt so different after her passing. So I cracked open and I let in that light, and eventually I began to let out the light as well. So it's okay to be a cracked vessel. It's all right to let ourselves fall apart during these times. And we have these periods in our life where it may not be a big change. It just may be we're unsure, we're uncertain. What is ours to do next and what is important? And those times are a mystery as well. So living in the mystery is almost dancing with life, dancing with God. God for me stands for good, orderly direction. And we don't have to always understand what is unfolding. We don't always have to like it. But we can know that God is present, that God is present. So don't worry if you can't see that far ahead. Just take that light that is within you, that glimmer of hope, and let that be the light, because you really only need to know the very next step in life, and take that next step. Do the small things. When life does feel so confusing, unsure, the confidence just doesn't seem to be there, know that the guidance will come, even if it's only for the very next step. And only go as far as you can see. It may not be time to run your first marathon or jump into a new relationship. It may not be time to switch jobs, but it may be time to dream, to hope, to just know that you're not alone. I've discovered that my animal totem is a rabbit. And I had gone to a women's workshop about 20 years ago, and everybody was discovering their animal totem. And I picked a cat or a dog because, I was used to cats and dogs. Most of us have had them as children. And she said, that can't be it. It's probably something like a snake or something more exotic. I'm like, oh, what is my animal totem? And she goes, well, everyone has one. And it reverberated in my ears. Everyone has an animal totem. Well, I didn't. And I didn't for all those years. And lately, the rabbit has been really standing out to me. And so a friend, because I've been seeing them in my neighborhood and I count them, and I've counted up to 25 rabbits on a 30-minute walk. So there's something happening, and well, it could just be the rabbits, but there's definitely something happening. So a friend of mine looked up in the book Animals Speak about what the message of a rabbit, and she said it is stay put. They freeze. Stay put until you get clear direction, and then run for it. And they do that. They stay put, and then they find their direction, and they bolt, and they are clear, and they go exactly where they're going. So for me, and my personality type my animal totem was probably a ping pong ball before, or a pinball machine. I was kind of all over the place, thinking anytime I was uncomfortable, I would just make a change. New friends, or go shopping, or look for a new job, it must be something I need to do. But the rabbit stays put until it is very clear that it is time to move. So that can be helpful too in living in the mystery. It's okay to just stay where you are until you get very clear direction to do otherwise. And so I'm using this little rabbit to all of them, to all 25 of them, to bring me some wisdom. So during these times, we can also remember the quote by Martin Luther King Jr. You may be familiar with this. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. So when we know that God is here and right now, we can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, or we can stay put until it's time to bolt. Can I get an amen? Amen. Yes. So that's what I've been doing since graduating from ministerial school. It's been 3 years now. I thought I was going to move up here, breeze through the program in 3 years, and then go somewhere else. And so I never even learned my way beyond Target. And Target's right there by Unity Village. I lived on campus for 2.5 years, and I knew how to get to Whole Foods and to Overland Park, and that's about it. So then I realized it looks like I'm not going anywhere. So I'm going to stay put until I get clear direction. Ended up staying at Silent Unity for 6 years, and now I'm at Unity Worldwide Ministries. So perhaps it wasn't mine to breeze through school, move to another part of the country, and get a permanent church. I love speaking here and at the other churches where I travel and speak. So that's part of living in the mystery, is just being with what is. You see, I thought I had it all figured out. I really did. You've probably been there too, but I really didn't. And I feel so much more at peace and centered, knowing that I don't know, and then when I need to know, I'll know. It can be that easy. So I wanted to share this with you from James Hollis, who wrote Swamplands of the Soul. He said, in the final analysis, we do not solve our problems, for life is not a problem to be solved, but an experiment to be lived. And that reminds me of the song, I'm Not Lost, I'm Exploring by Jana Stanfield. What if life is an experiment and we don't need to figure it all out? We can let it unfold and the players will come and go off the stage of life. We will be given our cues. The light will shine upon us at times, and sometimes it'll shine on someone else. And when it is our time, we can know that as well. So there's just something about living in the rhythm of life that I'm just tapping into. And when I was at Unity Village recently and bumped into some of the wonderful people here from that community, we both had a sense that we were meant to talk. Spirit told me to go to the inn and that maybe I would see someone to speak with. And I didn't know who it was, but they knew too that I was to be there and to communicate. So when we really listen, we can trust God to guide us along these milestones in life. James Hollis also said, and I'm paraphrasing this, he says, we cannot avoid the swamplands of the soul, but we may come to value them for what they bring us. And I'm not sure if you know what swamplands are. I'm going to go ahead and enlighten you because I'm from Florida. Swamplands have alligators in them and a lot of muck. Yeah. If you've ever heard the phrase, it was like walking in mud, heavy, slow. Will I ever get there? And then the danger of the alligator. You know, symbolic of those times in our life, the void, I call it, when we are not knowing, when we're not sure. So he says we may come to value them for what they bring us. Those dark times can bring us beautiful gifts, like the pearl from an oyster. A pearl is actually created out of discomfort. Did you know that? They say a grain of sand gets in and irritates the oyster, and somehow or another a pearl is formed, and it's beautiful. It's probably what that watch was made of. That beautiful shell. So those tough times in our lives can end up being the greatest gifts. And I'm not saying to not let our feelings unfold in those times, because it can be filled with sorrow and loss and perhaps attached to any other sorrow and loss in our life that we didn't fully express. I know when my mother passed, I believe I was grieving not only the loss of her in my life, but any other thing in my life that I didn't understand, or the times I moved, the pets that I lost. I just let it all out. I let it all out. I let myself be raw and vulnerable, even doubting and scared. And there's something about being vulnerable that is a prayer request in itself, that is an opening. So these times that we crack open and let in the light are very healing times. You know, in Unity, we talk about our oneness, and we speak of our oneness with all that is, that we are connected with a great web of life. And it is true, and sometimes we may forget that, but just taking in that deep breath, maybe even going for a walk in nature, can remind us of how truly connected we are. And we may not understand how there are those times that we just feel disconnected. We're not feeling our spiritual nature. And there's an explanation for this. So this may support you for a time in your life. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin wrote this in 1955. He says, and you've probably heard this, there's probably bumper stickers, and this is the man who wrote this. He said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And he published this in his book called Phenomenon of Man, which was published the year of his death. And the distinction that he's trying to make is that the true nature of our being is our spiritual nature, but our nature is twofold. It is twofold. We are both human and divine. And this can be challenging for us, because in those tough times, we very much feel our human emotions, and we very much see the humanness playing out on the world stage, don't we? We see it in the headlines. We see it on Facebook. We see the challenges. We see the shootings. We see this which does not look spiritual at all. But we are both human and divine. We're both human and spiritual. And the two stories of creation explain this further. In Genesis 1:27, it says, so God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. So God's image is our first nature. This is spirit. We are spiritual beings. And in Genesis 2:7, it says, then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So this is our physical form. This is our human experience. We are human. We are spiritual. We are human. And sometimes I think we beat ourselves up when we begin to feel human because we expect, well, I just attended that class last week. I went to church 3 times this month, and I know the spiritual truth. And here I am sad, or here I am worried. We are both human and spiritual. Does that just kind of take you off the hook? Yeah. So we can expect to have this dual nature rise or show up, manifest in our life. The truth is that we are spiritual. And even in our humanness, we can reach a portal into spirituality. The shortest sentence in the Bible was when Lazarus died and Jesus cried. And so the shortest sentence in the Bible is, he wept. He wept. He showed his humanness. So even in our humanness, we find that portal into the divine. And that lets us just be where we are, wherever we are. There is also that wonderful passage that we are reminded to be in the world but not of it. So we can be in our humanness and learn to know that Spirit is there and to walk in the world. Now that sounds challenging, but I believe that is what we are being called to do. To be right where we are and to recognize also that God is in the midst. I can be in my humanity, I can be in my spiritual self. Whatever is going on, God is here. God is here. This is a new thought church. So there's always a new thought. There's always a new thought or a new way of looking at things. So if we are down in the dumps or feeling lost, feeling stuck, we can know there's another way of looking at this and that God is here. So it's time to let go of the BS. Time to let go of the BS. Now the BS means our belief system. Gotcha, didn't I? So our belief system sometimes can hold us back. And that's when we hear that voice that says, you should not be angry at her anymore. You should be able to lose weight faster. You should wash that car every Sunday. You should have more in your bank account and your savings account. There's a lot of shoulds. And we in Unity often say, don't should on yourself. Don't should on anyone else. So shoulding is part of that BS. So we can just use that playful way of looking at it to know that oftentimes our own beliefs are what are bringing us down. Wayne Dyer addresses living in the mystery in the very first chapter of his book called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And in it, he gives an interpretation of the Tao Te Ching, and he's giving some spiritual advice here, which sounded good, so I'm going to pass on some of it to you. He says, let the world unfold without always attempting to figure it out. Don't try so hard to make something work. Simply allow. When expectations are shattered, practice allowing it to be the way it is, because life tends to be the way it is. We play our part, we listen for the guidance, and play our part, and let it unfold. So one of the key components of what Dr. Dyer is telling us is to be the observer, to watch life unfold, to even notice when we may be experiencing anxiety or fear or sadness, and just notice, in my human self, I'm feeling a sense of sadness right now, or I'm feeling a little worried about something for later on in the day that I know I'm going to have to deal with. Just notice it. It might come up again. And the underlying truth, that underlying current is God carrying us from this moment into the next. This too shall pass. So we have the power to choose joy, to choose heaven, to choose love. I also wanted to share with you what Ram Dass says. He wrote, Be Here Now. You may be familiar with Ram Dass. He says this process is realizing that you and I exist on more than one plane of awareness simultaneously. And he says, can you balance these two in your consciousness? So that can be something that we put into practice this week and beyond, is to just notice and be aware and acknowledge both our spiritual and our human natures. You know, we have the awesome duty of being instruments of God. And we can only do that by letting go of old ideas that may have held us back. We are here to awaken. We're here to awaken to God's truth and to share that, to manifest that in the world. And we can no longer unknow what we know. See, there's something about coming to Unity and learning about these teachings. You can't go back in the world and unlearn them and be the old way. So the message for today is about balancing our human and spiritual natures. And know that those times of change, those times that feel like a void, those mysterious times, God is there. God is there. I don't know if you've ever felt like totally alone in those times. I know I have. Void, empty. But God is present. We can do more than survive. We can thrive. And we must listen, just listen for what the very next step is. And then show up and be present and keep putting one foot in front of the other. So continue living in the mystery. Continue supporting one another and be the love that you are. You have everything you need deep within you. God bless you and namaste.